Hello and welcome to the Cybersecurity series focused on amplifying the role of healthcare defenders. In this series, we focus on the key role that healthcare defenders play in safeguarding critical infrastructure while helping to ensure the continuity of care and the safety of patients. I'm David Holding, Director of Global Security and Compliance for the Healthcare and Life Sciences industry at Microsoft. In today's episode, we're going to delve into advanced AI, threat detection and response, and the critical role that healthcare defenders play in countering this daunting challenge. I'm excited to have an industry-leading expert join our conversation today to share their insights and expertise. John Allen, Senior VP and Chief Information Security Officer at Darktrace. Welcome, John.
Thanks, David. It's great to be here.
To start the discussion, John, from your standpoint, what are the top threats, risks, and challenges you see for the healthcare industry globally?
Yeah, David, it's a great place to start. And I think a lot of times in cybersecurity, we like to get excited about the new and interesting thing. And in healthcare, it does have some of those. There are, instances of nation-state actors attacking healthcare in order to sow mistrust and doubt. There's also examples of AI being used to intercept DICAM traffic and either insert or remove findings from images. But at Darktrace, and what I'm seeing personally is it's actually much more mundane. It comes down to the biggest threats are still email and ransomware. That's what's facing healthcare. And the challenges they're facing are a little bit specific to healthcare. In healthcare, you're dealing a lot with legacy systems. And healthcare is a little bit behind the curve, I think, on its digital transformation. So you've got some older devices being brought online. Getting visibility to those is oftentimes a challenge. And then actually monitoring and getting the patching vulnerabilities associated with those devices is also a concern. The other risk, I think, and this one really rings true to all areas of healthcare, is the operational disruption. If you think about it, you mentioned it at the beginning, kind of patient care delivery. If you're the patient, there's no other operational mission that's more important than that. And attackers know that, and they take advantage of that. And so that increases the likelihood of some of those organizations to pay a ransomware to remove that operational disruption. Some of the other areas sort of adjacent to patient care, where you have manufacturing processes that are certified, the disruption to those incurs a lot of costs when you have to restart them and certify them. And then last but certainly not least is the financial implications. So healthcare is, a financial organization and process as well, from claims processing and reimbursements, that entire engine that needs to happen, whether it's US based or even, international and other countries where maybe it's more government run. Those processes still need to take place. And if attackers can disrupt that, they see that as an end to being able to extract some value from organizations. And lastly, it's the people. If you think about it, they got into healthcare and are there to help deliver patient care, to make access to care easier, to innovate and find the next novel treatment. They like to help, and they want to help, and they want to make things easier. And attackers exploit this. They realize that they deal in high-pressure situations, and they try and incite them to act, and for them to follow through on their mission to make life easier for the patients. And oftentimes that's a downside and a challenge for the security defender to overcome. So that's my view and Darktrace's view and kind of what we see out there in the healthcare space. It's tough. It's a tough environment.
Yeah, thank you, John. So many great points. What really stood out is, the disruptions you were talking about, which can compromise the quality of care, obviously patient safety in worst cases. And then you were talking about how the people, are so important and the clinicians, the nurses, the doctors, et cetera. Any healthcare worker is essentially on the front lines when it comes to ransomware and phishing and social engineering. But then, you've got the shifting environment under the hood, right? You've got migration to cloud, you've got AI and data's moving and systems are moving, and it's a complex IT environment. We have bring your own device, bring your own AI now and all kinds of things. So, okay, let's switch gears. So if you're thinking about, healthcare defenders, right? Some of them are going to be slightly more technical. We don't want to get too technical here, but help us understand how most threat detection and response works and how Darktrace capabilities differ.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thank you. And I think if you think about it, the traditional approach to cybersecurity has been focused on the threat. So it's been focused on what's the attacker doing, or what's the vulnerability of the asset or the edge device. And the idea being there is if I can get enough information, I can get enough indicators of compromise, I'll be able to find it faster or find the vulnerability and patch it sooner. And that's good. You should do that. Darktrace's approach, however, is fundamentally different. It's not focused on looking at attacker behavior. It's focused on looking at your organization. And now that can be across any digital domain. It can be looking at your email. It can be looking at what network devices are doing, OT devices, what's happening in cloud, what your identities are accessing. By looking at that and understanding first and foremost, what do the normal patterns look like for this organization, for this particular group, for this particular individual? By using AI to understand that, we're able to detect and pick up on the anomalies. And that's where the threat's going to lie. And so we use AI. We won't get too technical. Bayesian probabilistic modeling is really at the heart of it for that detection of the anomalous behaviors. But there's multiple uses of AI. On top of that, we lay on a multi-layered agentic AI system that researches each and every one of those anomalies. Not all of them are bad, but it's able to kind of stitch them together and triage and figure out which are the ones that you really need to look at. And now that brings the detection capabilities, which is great. You need that, but you can't stop there. At the speed of the attacks that we're seeing, you need to be able to respond and to contain them. And that's another area where Darktrace really differentiates itself. Because we're able to detect the anomaly, we're able to respond and stop just the anomaly. Now, in healthcare, I like to kind of borrow a phrase from some of our clinician friends that says, you never want the treatment to be worse than the disease. Oftentimes in cybersecurity, the option that we have to treat the attack could cause, unnecessary operational implications where that cost is worse than what that attack actually was initially. With Darktrace, you don't have to worry about that. The response is really just stopping those anomalous events. Anything else that practitioner, that back office worker, that device has established as a normal behavior, Darktrace isn't going to interrupt that. That's been established as a known behavior. So that's really, I think, David, kind of where we set ourselves apart. And it's not one or the other. And that's why this partnership with Microsoft is so great. If you think about focusing on attacker behavior, you need a lot of data to do that. There's no one better than Microsoft to get access to data and to understand those patterns. But if you want to focus on what your organization is doing and find those anomalies, that's where Darktrace has been focused for well over a decade in understanding that and bringing that to market.
Yeah, super interesting, John. Thank you for that overview. And to me, it makes complete sense. I mean, oftentimes we detect malware through, like its signature, right? Indicator of compromise. But what if you have a fundamentally new type of malware, hasn't been seen, hasn't been cataloged, signature is unknown, might be polymorphic. Darktrace is measuring normal state and then detecting deviations from normal state. So you could potentially catch things that are brand new, like 0 day, right? Like they haven't been seen before, but they're producing anomalous behavior that triggers the detection, and then you can respond. Super interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, oftentimes. And we have some research out there that kind of backtracks to say, oh, we actually found this attack. It's associated with this vulnerability. But on average, we're finding it 8 days before the vulnerability is disclosed, and sometimes a lot more, and sometimes a day or two. But the essence is Darktrace doesn't need to know that it has a CVE number on it. It doesn't need to know that it's from a particular attack group. All it needs to know is what's normal behavior, and now this stands out as anomalous, and now we can step in and contain that. It's kind of the post-mortem, if you will, where we've gone back and our research team has said, oh, wait, that was that was associated with an attacker exploiting, CVE 123, that we actually find out and can associate those.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think super important in the current backdrop where we have attackers using AI, producing more sophisticated malware that can morph its signature, can even morph its behavior, but Darktrace is able to detect anomalies, anything that deviates from the norm, right? So it makes a lot of sense. But you were talking also about data, right? The importance of data, accurate, complete, up-to-date data. We know that AI runs on data, right? So unfortunately, we have a lot of evidence in the healthcare industry worldwide that organizations are struggling with disjoint security solutions. They have multiple different solutions. They aren't necessarily integrated. It's an efficiency challenge, can be a burnout challenge for the SOC team, the security analysts. And they can miss alerts if they got multiple dashboards. So it adds risk in that sense. And you talk about the importance from your standpoint of integration and data that's accurate, complete, and up to date for AI, and maybe help us understand how is Darktrace integrated with Microsoft Security?
Yeah, no, that's a great question too. And I think I'll start kind of on a separate line there to say the problem that we're describing, and you brought it up as well, kind of the polymorphic nature of some of this ransomware. This is not a human solvable problem. You need to leverage AI to find those anomalies. Your people, and email is another example with business email compromise. It looks really good. Humans aren't going to be able to spot it. AI, on the other hand, can find it actually quite easily and detect those anomalies. So it's not a human solvable problem. You're going to need an AI tool. But then when you go down that path, it's not just one AI tool. And to your question and your point, it's not something that, one provider is going to be able to solve everything for you. You're going to need integrations. You're going to need to pull data together. The data is the fuel for AI. And so Darktrace, we've embraced this from our beginning, being very integration friendly, happy to pull in telemetry from multiple devices, from firewalls, from endpoints, lots of different areas, because again, it makes that detection better. It makes that understanding better to be able to piece everything together. The Microsoft specific integrations, and Microsoft's been a wonderful partner. So we integrate with Defender XDR to, again, bring in telemetry to understand, it's telemetry, but it's also, I guess, events as well. So as XDR is detecting, a strange action, either in the identity with Entra firing something, or on Defender for Endpoint, where it's saying something odd is happening and I'm detecting it inside of an actual endpoint. Darktrace is able to pull those in and piece it together with all the other areas of the digital domain that we have visibility to say, can I associate this alert with maybe some anomalous network activity, or trace it all the way back to an email that came in that looked a little bit suspicious. Lots of different things that, again, will paint that complete picture for the human to pick up and action on. So the Defender XDR is a great integration. The other piece is Sentinel. So pulling all of those logs together to, again, paint that complete picture. And, Darktrace, we're not a SIM. We don't pull together everything to be able to replay a complete timeline. Talking about data and access to data, Microsoft is the best position to do that. And so lots of our customers leverage Sentinel to continue to do that. And then we'll just insert and allow Darktrace to integrate and feed in the insights that it's pulling out of what it's seeing in the environment.
Yeah, thank you, John. And so in a way, I'm going to kind of classify that as, there's integrations that Darktrace has that enable the magic of Darktrace to be realized in the healthcare environment, like integration with Microsoft 365 and help with email and phishing and all kinds of things, business email compromise. And then there's integrations between the security solutions. So Sentinel, Defender, I think Security Copilot as well. And very interesting there because, AI is going to empower the healthcare defenders, improve their speed, scale, accuracy, and even upskill them on the job. And then I think Microsoft Entra as well. So long story short, really great integration. It's going to help with efficiency. It's going to help lower risk, and it's paving the way for AI because all the best telemetry from Darktrace and from Microsoft converging to the AI-powered security is going to really give the best result to the healthcare defenders. Okay, yeah. Switching gears a little bit. Good. Did you have something to add there, John?
Yeah, real quick on the Copilot side, I think that partnership is a great example and customers leveraging that to improve their AI maturity. And so if you look at our initial integration with Copilot, it was a great way to, let Copilot handle natural language processing and defenders to ask it questions. And Copilot has easy access to all of the publicly available Darktrace APIs. And so behind the scenes, it's able to reach in and say, oh, what was interesting about that network alert? What was that device doing at this time of day? Or what about that email? So really kind of at that AI assistant level of using Copilot. If you go up another level on maturity to say, I want to be able to collaborate with AI, and I want it to be a bit of a more of an agentic use of it to help augment me. We have that as well with Copilot, where Copilot itself is able to go ahead and do additional research on things that it found interesting, or the human just saying, look for this identity or look at this particular endpoint. And Copilot can go down multiple different paths in order to research and triage and find out if there's anything there, using, like you said, the magic of Darktrace and what Darktrace has seen, coupled together with all of the other integrations that Copilot has. So yeah, we're really happy with where we are with that, and really all the possibilities yet to come.
Yeah, makes sense, John. Thank you. And it's so important, I think, with attackers, again, starting to pick up AI that they're using for ransomware phishing, spear phishing, deepfakes, social engineering, etc., and more sophisticated malware. So important to empower the defenders with AI as well, and this integration we have, and collaboration on the AI side is going to be pivotal. So switching gears slightly, help us understand, are there some success stories you can share for healthcare organizations you've worked with, Darktrace has worked with, to address advanced threat detection and response?
Yeah, no, certainly. So we have customers, again, I guess I'll set the stage across the board. The entire spectrum of the business of healthcare, from providers, from payers, from innovators, manufacturers, and all sizes. So from small regional hospitals up to large academic institutions and government-run health systems. So Darktrace can apply, like I said, across the board. Some of the things and some of the instances that come to mind that I think really stick out and kind of show the value of Darktrace are, one was specific on a pharmaceutical manufacturing company. And now this one was in trial mode, so Darktrace didn't act on it. So that's why it kind of went along the line. You'll see as I go through the example. But the first indicator was Darktrace said, this device is reaching out to a strange endpoint in Asia. And now a lot of pharmaceutical raw materials are sourced from there. So it's not unusual for, that geolocation to be reached out to, but it was that endpoint specifically. And it said, this could be something like a beaconing and some type of a Bitcoin mining or crypto mining type of situation. Then it continued on, and then it saw that actually now it was downloading a payload from another rare endpoint. And again, it alerted to that as well. And then the next step was you started to see some strange processes being run on that endpoint. And so some installations happening. And then the last piece of this was data exfiltration, where we saw over a gig of data being exfiltrated. And, not a great example for that particular, person who was trialing Darktrace. Had we been in place earlier, it would have stopped at the crypto mining. It would have stopped at that, and which is something a lot of organizations are like, that's, okay, that's not that concerning. We'll just deal with it. They're stealing some energy from me. But it quickly goes to what you can see there, where it's malware being downloaded and data being exfiltrated, and with a pharmaceutical manufacturing, that's critical IP that could be leaving your organization. With a healthcare organization, it could be very sensitive PHI leaving your organization. So that trail of the attack is something Darktrace alerted to, found those anomalies along the way, would have stopped it had we been able to do the containment there, but it was just in a trial mode. Another example is a large academic hospital associated with the university, so around 900 beds. So not your largest, but definitely not a small one. This one happened in the identity space, and so again, users in healthcare want to be helpful, and this person's credentials were compromised. And Darktrace didn't know about that. That happened in the background. What Darktrace saw, because it was watching the Office 365 environment, it saw that identity going to places in SharePoint that it normally didn't go. And then it saw it moving an amount of data that was, again, atypical. And then it stepped in and locked that account and prevented it from moving that data. From Darktrace's perspective, it was just another day. It was an anomaly. It stopped it. It contained it. That identity was able to do things that had already proven normal for it to do. On the back end, talking with the CISO, the actual location in SharePoint did contain EPHI. Had that data been exfiltrated, now they're being exposed. Now they would have to report data compromise in being, their sensitivity to that data that they need to control. So those are a couple examples. There's many more. Email is the one that, happens every day. On the incoming side, and we mentioned business email compromise. It's very hard for users to detect that because it is coming from a valid domain, from a valid person that you've probably communicated with before. The other thing that Darktrace offers, though, is that external email. And so if you're sending email out, which again is very important for healthcare because you're dealing with sensitive data. And so we've had large healthcare organizations, again, say that because Darktrace was able to know which email boxes do I normally communicate with externally, and when I fat finger that, it can step in and tell me, are you sure that's where you want to send it? And in some cases, not me, but there was an attachment that included patient information. Had that been able to go out, now you're in a position, not just the compliance costs of that, but the operational costs. You've got to reach out. You got to see, was that a valid email box? Was it open? Did someone look at it? Now what type of notification do I have to perform? So just preventing that disruption and that operational impact is huge for customers in the healthcare space.
Yeah, thank you, John. So many great examples and use cases, and it's clear that those are relevant across so many different kinds of healthcare and life sciences organizations, providers, payers, pharmaceuticals, med tech, and worldwide. They're all facing these advanced threats and can use this capability. And so I think, there are a wealth of other, customer success stories, case studies on the Darktrace website. We can include a link below and fully encourage the listeners, healthcare defenders to explore those and see, the evidence across your particular size and type of organization. So thank you, John. Switching gears slightly. So picture a healthcare defender, that's watching this video. What is the next step, or is there a small set of steps they should take to get started here?
Yeah. No, I think the next step and kind of that first step is what you said. Go to the Darktrace website. Look at some of these examples that we found in healthcare in all areas, in the patient care delivery, and the payer-provider relationship, and the manufacturing space, and understand what were they facing, what did Darktrace detect, and how did they help. We also have a wonderful threat research report that we've done on healthcare, and it goes and looks at healthcare from a global perspective in some of those high-level trends that I've called out here today, but even then breaks it down into more detailed per market. So there's a deep dive into the US healthcare market, which is much more capitalist-driven, and you get a lot more financial motivation behind the attacks there. It also dives into the UK healthcare sector, which again is more of a state-run, and you get into more of the disruption type of a motive there. And it also goes actually into the Brazilian healthcare market, where again there's interesting nuances to the attacks that are taking place there, and where the attackers are targeting more of the cosmetic healthcare space there in order to actually try to extract payments from the patients themselves. So the first step would be take a look out there. Maybe you'll see something, I think you will, about, well, what are other customers in my space, in my market facing? Am I facing that same thing? The last thing then I would say is reach out to us, take a look at it. It's one thing to look and see, what's happening in a different customer's environment, which is in the same industry, which is likely similar, but it's a whole other one to understand what's happening in my organization. And the way Darktrace works, it's very non-intrusive. You can set up a free trial very quickly. Let it take a look at your environment. Let it take a look at your email, and then trial it and see, is it finding anything interesting? Does it give me visibility that I didn't have before? That's one of the big things actually with healthcare is because a lot of these devices are involved in patient care delivery and their legacy, to get visibility on them, oftentimes you can't install an agent. Oftentimes you can't upgrade to the latest patch level because you'd have to go through so many certification steps that it's going to be painful to do that. Darktrace doesn't care about that. It will watch and just understand how's it behaving, and can alert and disrupt and alert you to any anomalous behaviors there. So I would encourage folks, it's an easy uplift to take a look and see what does your environment look like and what does Darktrace have to say about it.
Thanks again, John. And, it's so interesting having these conversations, and a great way for, the listeners, watchers to learn. But the real value to healthcare in terms of improving their defense is, those next steps. And so really encourage folks to check out the links below this video and explore further. So thank you again, John. As John shared, advanced AI-powered threats are top risk facing all healthcare and life sciences organizations worldwide. But with the right focus, strategies, and capabilities for AI-powered threat detection and response, healthcare defenders can conquer this daunting challenge. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll learn more about how to combat advanced threats, including ransomware prevention, detection, response, and remediation, so together we can minimize the impacts and risk of disruptions in healthcare and enable the best quality patient care.